Hi, it's Jordan Teen 1, and today I'll be showing you how to make this cute little American flag charm since the 4th of July is right around the corner. Or it would be good to show your patriotism any time of the year. So it measures approximately 2.5 inches long by 1.5 inches high, and I did make this with the Alpha Loom Bands. So you can also do it with the regular Rainbow Loom Bands. You would just have to double them because they are twice as big. So I think it makes a cute little decoration, or it would be nice for a keychain. You can make your flag either on the Alpha Loom, or you can do it on the full-size Rainbow Loom. So if you have the Alpha Loom, I think it's a little bit quicker and easier to do on that. But I'm going to show it today on the Rainbow Loom because I had a few requests to show how to do this type of bracelet on the Rainbow Loom. So I thought I would do this tutorial to show you how to follow a pattern and then also show how to do it on the Rainbow Loom. So for your setup here, you want to have your pins in line with one another. You're going to need to use 7 sets of pins, and you're going to be using the ones straight across from one another. So I removed my row of pins here on the right, but you don't have to remove any rows if you don't want to. And then as far as my base plates go, I've spread them apart. I have just the small one at the bottom, and then I have the large one all the way to the top. And then that left me with 7 rows here where you don't want anything in between because your flag is going to grow down in between the pins. As far as your band counts, you're going to need 14 of the blue, 48 white, 50 red, and then you're going to need 15 clear bands, and these are going to just tie your rows together. And as I said, I'm using the Alpha Loom Bands, but you can use the full-size Rainbow Loom Bands. You would just need to double them. During this video, I'm going to be adding a grid pattern in the upper left-hand corner, and I'm going to be highlighting the rows that I'm working on, just so you can easily follow along with this. And you'll notice that I have my flag flipped the opposite direction, and the reason that I've done that is because I want my ending spot or my loose band to wind up in the top left-hand corner of the flag. To begin, we're going to start on the far left, and you read a pattern the same way that you would read a book from left to right, and we'll be reading the pattern in vertical rows, the ones that are straight up and down. So I've laid out my bands for the first row, and the only thing that's a little bit different about the first row is since it's the start, you're going to have to twist the bands or make a figure 8 with them. So here's my first one, and it's going on this top pin here. And here's where I want to twist and make that figure 8. And then I have white next. So with these Alpha Loom Bands, they are definitely a lot smaller, so you have to do a little bit more stretching. I think they're a little bit more of a challenge maybe to get on the pins themselves, just because they're little. And then here we have red at the bottom. So after you put a layer on, you want to push the bands down to the bottom of the pins. And with the Alpha Loom, you have the Alpha Cone to do this, but if you have the Rainbow Loom, you'll have to find something else. So you want something thin that can fit in between the layers, but it also has to be kind of rigid. So I have just an old store card here, and I'm just going to push all of this down to the bottom. So if you have an old credit card or store card, you can do that, or really anything that you find that can work for you. And then the next thing we need to do is put on a clear band, and you're going to do this in between every row, and that's what's going to tie all of these rows together. So here's my clear band. Let me just zoom this out just a little bit here so I feel like I can fit it all in. And that's going to stretch all the way from the bottom pin to the top. And on the Alpha Loom, it's not as long of a stretch, but these pins are more spaced out on the Rainbow Loom, so it's definitely going to be a very tight stretch. And you can do it on either side. I tend to do it on the left side and then just keep it on that same side, even though it doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to put it around this bottom pin, and it's going to do a really long tight stretch all the way up to the top. And then again, you want to push this down a little bit here. Row 2 is going to be the same as row 1. So what I'm going to do is just stretch the band straight across, and this time I do not have to do any twisting. That was only for the first row. So you're just putting these straight across, and you want to try and get them as smooth as possible. Try not to have the bands twisted, because the straighter that the bands are, the nicer that your bracelet or charm is going to turn out. Didn't quite make it on there. And if you feel like your bands are twisted when you put them on, you can just take your hook and then just run it around to try and smooth them out. So now that we have that row on, what you're going to do is take your clear band and pull it over the top and into the center. And then what you're going to do is remove the bottom band from each one of these sides here. So just going to do all the ones on the right. And then all the ones on the left. Really doesn't matter what order you take them off in. And again, this is where the Alpha Loom makes it quicker because you can grab all 7 at once. And then again, you're going to just push everything down to the bottom. And then we need to add our next clear band. So again, I'm going to stick to the left here, and I'm going to stretch it all the way from top to bottom. So now we're on to row 3. Again, it's that same pattern. And so you're just stretching them straight across from one side to the other. And if you feel like you're struggling with that, what you can do is just put one of the bands on just one side and then take your hook and stretch it across. So I know that these are a little bit harder to work with, I think. It's going all the way to the bottom here. And then again, that first thing you're doing is getting this clear band to come over the top, just to link all those together. And then you're just going to take off that bottom layer. And again, it doesn't really matter what order you do it in, just as long as you get all of that bottom taken off. And push all of this down. And then do your clear band. And again, row 4 is the same. So I think I'm going to fast forward a little bit through this middle section just because the pattern keeps repeating, so it's pretty easy. And then when I get to a different pattern, I'll show you that row. starts a new pattern, so we're adding some blue in here. So we start with blue at the top, white and blue, whoops, and then the remainder of the row stays the same as the previous pattern with the whites and the reds for our stripes. And then you're going to take your clear band, put it in the middle, remove the bottom layer, so hopefully everybody's getting the hang of this by now. If you're just learning how to do this, push it all down. And now we're adding our next clear band. In row 11, the whites and blues at the top are switching places. So we start like in every other pattern. And then those bottom three remain constant throughout. Take off the clear, and then the bottom. Pushing down. And then doing that next clear. In row 12, the blue and white switch places again. So as I said, we're doing that every other pattern. So I'm just going to fast forward from here until the end, and then I will show you what to do to take it off of the loom. Now we're ready to remove this from the loom. So the first thing that I'm going to do is take the bands on the right and move them over to the left. Just place them right on top. And you want to try and keep them above. Try not to overlap the bands, although it's not a huge deal. But after we do this, we're going to get the bottom band to pull over the top. So that's why we want to keep this one on the top. And now the bottom one will come over for all of the pins. And now the last thing I'm going to do is take the bottom band and move it to that pin above. And then the band that's on the bottom, you're going to reach down inside that top one, grab the bottom, pull it up, and move it to that pin above. Just keep repeating that here. Bottom one comes up through and then gets pulled up. And again at the end here, this bottom one needs to come up through the top one. And then I'm going to leave this on my hook. I'm going to put my finger on it just to make sure I don't lose it. And then I can release all the rest of these. They should all be linked together. And then here is your flag. So you might have to adjust some of these bands a little bit here at the end. So the last thing you need to do is either add a clip on here. So you can do a C clip or an S clip, just because you're going to have to deal with that one loose band at the end. Or what you can do is take another rubber band. So I have a white band here. Let me just take this clip back off. And what I'm going to do is reach through here, this second white one over, grab the blue, and I'm going to take this white, pull through both, get it back on, and make a really nice tight slip knot. And then what you can do is just hide this. Let me just come down through the inside here. Hide it in the back there. And then you have a nice little American flag. I hope that everyone loves their new little flag charms. You can always leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook, post pictures of your creations to my Facebook page, and please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on my latest tutorials. You can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram, so please feel free to subscribe to those as well. Thanks for watching!